Professor.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Kaweesi.
Good to have you again.
Thank you so much.
My name is Emmanuel Kaweesi from the School of Law, Makerere University, Department of Human Rights and Peace Center, and I'm also working as a doctoral researcher and an assistant lecturer at the school. Professor, the reason we have invited you today is to have an interaction with you on questions to do with climate change, energy transitions, and the dilemmas involved in charcoal regulation and control, and its implications in the search for clean cooking solutions.
Thank you.
This is part of a broader project being handled by the Human Rights and Peace Center of Makerere University School of Law, together with University of St. Augustine in Tanzania and the Center for Resolution of International Conflicts at the Department of Social Sciences in the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. So, Professor, our broad inquiry, which is going on, is in a project titled Charcoal Conflict in Climate Change's Decarbonization Dilemmas: Notes of Livelihood, Nutrition, Communities, Gender, Migration, and Energy in East Africa. Under this, for today's purpose, we're interested in examining the frameworks, national and internationally, on clean cooking and where we stand as a country in the regional context and the international context, especially as we are trying to regulate the production and use of charcoal in favor of cleaner energies. So, Professor, I have a few questions I want to put to you, but maybe before we go into that, you may introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel Kaweesi, and I'm happy to be part of this project and specifically this interview. I begin by introducing myself. I'm Professor Emmanuel Kasimbazi at the School of Law, Makerere University. I'm actually a professor of environmental law, and I've worked on actually 3 projects related to charcoal regulation, and that's why I'm happy to be part of this really assignment. First of all, I did some work under what they used to call Green Charcoal Project under UNDP, where I was able to develop ordinances of the 4 pilot districts of Nakaseke, Kiboga, Mubenda, and Chiliandongo, but also developed national guidelines for sustainable production, storage, transportation, and trade in charcoal in Uganda. But also I worked in Somalia, where I was able to develop national and regional policies for reducing charcoal production, trade, and use in Somalia and neighboring countries. You know, this was also under UNDP. But also I've had an opportunity recently to work under FAO, where I worked on a project to review regulatory framework for charcoal value chain in Uganda. So I'm happy really to be part of this project, you know, based on my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I think this is, you have a wealth of experience that our project and maybe the listeners out there will have to benefit from greatly. And I believe your expertise is going to contribute immensely to the if a consequential probably streamlining of the entire energy value chains and Uganda's journey in the transition.
Sure.
So today I want us to specifically address environmental law and policy and cooking fuels in the global and national perspective. And my question, number 1 for you, how does international environmental law address the issue of cooking fuels and their impact on climate change and human health?
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaweesi. This is a very, very important question. As you know, really, international environmental law is very important in dealing with climate change and health issues. As a way of really introduction, I'd like to state that polluting cooking fuel releases significant amount of black carbon, or what they call short-lived climate pollutant, and other fine particulate matter, which have severe impacts on both climate change and human health, resulting in thousands of premature deaths annually, which actually violates global principles on environmental health and human rights. Now, international environmental laws and agreements actually provide a platform for coordinated action, funding, and policy development to accelerate the adoption of clean cooking technologies, which include efficient biomass stoves, LPG, and electric cooking solutions. However, it is important to note that there's no single actually dedicated treaty that specifically targets cooking fuel. Instead, the issue is addressed indirectly through a multifaceted approach with broader frameworks dealing with climate change, air pollution, and sustainable development. Now I'll go through some of the instruments that would interest you and also the public. Now the first one is the Paris Agreement on Climate Change of 2015. And actually this is the central treaty for climate change mitigation. In one way or another, it indirectly addresses cooking fuel through the following. Number one, when you go, for example, Article 4, Paragraph 2, it requires each party, including Uganda, to prepare, communicate, and maintain successive national determined contributions, what people call NDCs.
NDCs.
Yes, so that the parties pursue domestic mitigation measures. And also, under that, article, each party is further required to submit a new updated NDC every 5 years, representing progression and reflecting its highest possible ambition. So when you look at these NDCs, actually they are the most direct link through which countries set their climate targets.
According to their scale.
Yes, and also growing number of developing countries, including Uganda, are now including clean cooking targets and strategies within which NDCs to reduce greenhouse gas and black carbon emissions. But also, there is also another provision which is on climate finance, which is Article 212, which is supposed to, guide the states to make, or party states, to make finance flows consistent, the pathways towards how greenhouse gases emissions and climate resilient development can be handled. Then also Article 9, which is talking about financial resources to assist developing countries with both mitigation and adaptation efforts. All of these really encourage the parties to participate, to provide funding. So through this funding, the countries, especially the developed countries, can encourage financial technical support to countries like Uganda for climate-friendly solutions, which include funding for clean cooking projects to reduce reliance on polluting fuels and prevent deforestation. So that is the Paris
agreement.
Yes. Then the second one, which is was the earlier one, which is the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants of 2011. This controls emissions of harmful chemicals released through inefficient combustion and often found in traditional stoves. So you'll find that Uganda is also a party to this, and this convention requires parties to take measures to eliminate or reduce the risk of, persistent organic pollutants into the environment. And this includes establishing policies, practices that limit emissions from sources such as open burning, industrial processes, of which charcoal kilns are a significant type really in the region or in Africa, but also in Uganda. Then the third instrument is Sustainable Development Goals of 2015. Though this is not a legally binding instrument, but it's a powerful global policy and has some specific goals that are relevant to deal with charcoal. For example, Goal 3, which aims to promote good health and well-being is very, very important in charcoal, regulation, because by reducing household air pollution, the transition to clean cooking directly contributes to lowering premature death from non-communicable diseases. Okay. Then when you come to goal 7, which deals with affordable clean energy, the aim here is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy by 2030. So this includes specific target to provide universal access to clean cooking fuels, technologies, and recognizing the vital role in improving health, reducing impact, and promoting sustainable development. Okay. Then the other goal, which is very, very important, is goal 13 on climate action. So now under this goal, if for example, it is intended to help countries to align the local regulatory framework to charcoal production, trade, and consumption. So states are required to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts by reducing deforestation, minimizing carbon emissions, and also promoting carbon alternatives. Then the last one I deal with, which is not an instrument but is a voluntary initiative, is Climate Clean Coalition. This is not a treat, as I've said, but focuses on reducing short-lived climate pollutants like black carbon, which is from charcoal, with household energy being a key area of intervention. But also, since we are also dealing with health issues, I also talk about one instrument that is supposed to deal with charcoal issues, which is WHO guidelines for indoor air quality. Of course, as you know, this is again a soft law, not binding, but it is very, very important, in terms of regulating charcoal issues. Because under that guideline, charcoal is classified among solid fuels that contribute to indoor air pollution when burned inefficiently in traditional stoves. So this guideline highlights, the health burden from such household air pollution that causes million premature deaths annually. Now, the recommendation under this guideline is to promote improved cooking stoves, well-ventilated cooking areas, and clean energy sources to mitigate the risks. So generally, those are the instruments that I can highlight that guide at international level. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Still on that. So it is true, as you have highlighted, that international environmental law does not specifically address clean cooking.
Correct.
And there is no instrument dedicated for that.
Correct.
So what you've been explaining is the collection
yes.
of the different instruments from whose provisions we can conclude
yes.
The intention
yes.
to provide clean cooking solutions or regulate it as party states are advised to work on their affairs towards improving the situation in the kitchen.
Correct.
Professor, that's very important. Maybe I have one follow-up question on that.
Correct.
The Paris Agreement introduces a very important provision on financing.
Yes.
And if I remember your submission correctly, you said the developed states are given obligations to give financing support to the
yes.
Developing countries like Uganda to be able to comply
yes.
with the terms and maybe have a sustainable movement to a greener climate and future. So in your experience, how would you comment on the effectiveness of that provision and maybe the compliance of the tier 1 countries in supporting the developing countries to transit?
Well, first of all, is that's a very important provision. The only problem with that provision is voluntary. It doesn't, compare, the developed countries to, to contribute to the green fund, which is supposed to be, to fund the countries. So in other words, though it is a good provision, but since it is not, mandatory for the countries to provide funds, it really depends on the goodwill of the countries. And of course, that provision is also being weakened by the US, withdrawal from the Paris Agreement.
Sure.
So which means now we are only left with Europe, which is committed to deal with climate change.
Is China part of this?
Yes, but not strictly, it doesn't make a commitment. It's actually more or less like European countries that are more dedicated, to this provision more than China and the US. So in other words, we are yet to see the impact of this provision, really.
So where does that leave the polluter pays principle of environmental law, which is very celebrated at international level?
Well, of course, as you know, some of these principles are strong actually under customary international environmental law, which means they are, again, it depends on the goodwill of the countries, which means that the polluter pays principle is still weak, really, to implement, especially as far as the industrialized countries are concerned.
Thank you very much. I think that is very clear. My next issue would be, what are the major policy and legal frameworks governing cooking fuels and environmental protection in Uganda? And how effective are these in addressing environmental health and gender concerns?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Kaweesi. It's a very, very important, question. Of course, as an LD student, without regulation, without policies, we can't do much. Now, Uganda has actually developed several. We don't have a specific charcoal policy, but has developed, policies and also some laws that, in one way or another, are relevant to charcoal regulation. Now, I start with the policy framework. Now, the first one is NDP4, National Development Planning 4, which is supposed to be 2025 up 2029. Now, under this framework, it seeks to promote modern energy cooking services and technologies, electronic cooking, and alternative cooking fuels and technologies, which means that by 2029, we are supposed to have achieved this.
I hope so.
Yeah. Then the other one is Uganda has developed, revised the energy policy of 2023. And being a policy, it has strategies, again, that are very, very important as far as charcoal regulation. So one of the strategies is development of appropriate legislation and regulations promote and govern the use of biomass, along its value chain in a sustainable, modern, and clean manner. Then the second strategy means training sustainable biomass production in the environment, health, and economic sectors. Then the other one, which is very, very important, and here we are looking at sustainable charcoal really, production, is encouraging farmers to practice agroforestry for charcoal production, using suitable fast-growing tree species and appropriate cultural practices. Then the other strategy is promoting standardized commercialization of charcoal and reduce hardwood species depletion through appropriate variation by weight instead of unspecified volumes. Now, the other one which came earlier is Uganda Vision 2040. Now, this one also emphasizes energy diversification through LPG, biogas, electricity for cooking as part of its environmental sustainability and poverty reduction goals. Okay. Then the other one, which is about to expire, but is still relevant, is biomass energy strategy between 2014 2025. Now, this one provides a roadmap to reduce dependency on sustainable charcoal and power use. Now, in terms of legal framework, the government has already developed a bill, energy efficiency and conservation bill, of 2024, this is a very important bill because it aims to create a comprehensive legal and regulatory framework to enhance energy efficiency, conservation in Uganda, targeting all sectors of economy with emphasis on regulatory standards, incentives, and enforcement mechanism.
Okay.
Now, in this bill, you'll find that it covers efficient cooking technologies, but also address significant health, environmental, socio-economic challenges associated with traditional cooking practices that rely on inefficient and polluting fuels such as wood, charcoal, and crop residues. Then we also have the National Environment Act, which is very, very important. This act, as you know, it provides the overarching legal framework for environmental management, and this includes also regulation of activities such as charcoal production that have an impact on natural resources and ecosystems. Now, this act is important because it requires commercial charcoal production to undergo environmental impact assessment. But so which means you cannot do charcoal production unless you have a permit from NEMA. Then also another law, which is also important, but being revised, is the National Forestry and Tree Planting Act, of course, which governs the conservation and management of tree planting and related activities, which also includes charcoal regulation. Now, under this act, actually, it is illegal to cut trees for charcoal burning, which means in order to do that, you also need a permit, otherwise you'll be prosecuted. And now the National Forestry Authority, which is now in transition, actually has been enforcing this ban, of charcoal burning. And there are actually penalties that are imposed in case you are found in doing illegal charcoal production. But also, there are regulations that have been made under the National Forest Tree Planting Act, Forest and Tree Planting Regulations. Now, these regulations empower local governments to collect transportation fees for firewood and charcoal from all operators. Now, these regulations are a challenge because charcoal becomes a source of income. So, which means it's really
the local governments would find it.
Yes, to
stop it.
Yes, exactly.
Source of revenue.
Then there are other acts which are old but which are very important, like External Trade Act, which restricts goods which cannot be exported without a license. And in 1987, there was a ministerial external order, statutory instrument, which prohibits export of goods. It includes charcoal, you see. So this is which means that you need a license. But also at the East African level, we have the East African Customs Management Act, 2004, which prohibits export of charcoal from Uganda. And this one is actually, it aims to conserving domestic tree cover and limit unsustainable depletion. But again, in 2003, there was an executive order, which executive order number 3, which strictly bans commercial production trade in northern Uganda. And actually this order, executive order targets both commercial traffickers and small scale producers. But it is enforced through roadblocks and police and military. However, this executive order also has its own challenges because it has triggered a significant rise in charcoal prices and exposed challenges in enforcement, including, alleged corruption and also selective targeting by, security, officers. Now, maybe quickly, I can also talk about the gaps that are there
in the laws.
Yes, that limit actually the effectiveness of the law in terms of issues you have actually like environment, health, and gender concerns. Now, the first one is coordination and implementation issues. Now, you'll find that energy and environmental policies and laws are fragmented. So as a result, there is lack of coordination among government institutions, even the private sector. So you'll find, for example, tree production is under the Ministry of Environment. Then charcoal trade is under the Ministry of Energy. Charcoal consumption is rather under the Ministry of Trade. Charcoal consumption is under the Ministry of Energy. So you'll find that as a result, environment, health, gender ministries operate with overlapping and uncoordinated, mandates. Then the other challenge is financing and incentives. So in this law, there is no really, there are no incentives. You see, where there are no incentives, it is very difficult to discourage, unsustainable harvest or illegal charcoal production. Then the other challenge is that limited local and grassroots levels. As you know, charcoal is produced in rural areas, but then there is limited, enforcement of the laws. You see, as I've already said, you find the local governments are benefiting from charcoal, so they will find it very hard to enforce the law. Then the other challenge is that there is limited practical and realistic approaches in the law, because when you read the law, they are talking of, technological solutions, but they don't deal with practical issues, you see, such as infrastructure and financing to help shift away from biomass dependency. Then the other challenge is limited inclusion of gender roles. Whereas when you look at all of these, policies and even laws, they acknowledge, gender issues, actually, but it's not mainstreamed, you see. So in other words, there are no binding gender targets or budget allocations for addressing gendered, burdens, okay? So, so those are some of the, challenges that I see. And unless we address them, the problem is still with us here. Of charcoal, unsustainable charcoal, value chain, right from production to consumption.
Thank you, Professor. I just have one or two follow-ups on that.
Yes, please.
You have mentioned that the laws and policies we have a limited focus on the real problems on ground.
Yes.
The real problems in the kitchen.
Yes.
Too much focus is being put on technology.
Technology, yes.
The modeling.
Yes.
However, the actual implementation and probably after sale and the real life problems associated with the energy transition are not being addressed.
Correct.
So in that perspective, do you think the available technologies such as the EPCs, electric pressure cookers, and I have also seen ethanol cookers, and the common known gas cookers, do you think they address the real life problems of an African or stroke Ugandan family?
Well, of course, those are the opportunities, to address, the charcoal issues. But there are challenges, with that. For example, in rural areas, how many people can use a pressure cooker? Yeah. Number two, when you are talking of even cylinders, they are surprised. How many people are supplying these gas cylinders? They are not there. So first of all, they are expensive. Actually, the initial cost of buying a cylinder is very expensive, which means that a person who is in rural areas will never afford, because the initial cost, I think, a cylinder may be 200,000, which is very expensive. But also the knowledge, how to use it, how to connect it, is not yet really available. Now, that's why I was saying that the law does not address on how to use some of those things. What are the standards of using, a gas cooker that can be used by somebody who has not really, gone to school?
There is also a very strong belief that food prepared on these modernist appliances is not tasty.
Yes.
What would be your comment on that?
So those are some of the challenges that we talk about, because here you are looking at challenges which are non-monetary, the cultural issues. If somebody prepares matoke or even meat or even millet using charcoal, it tastes different, and that's true. Actually, when you even go to some other countries, they use actually some cookers, so that cooks slowly, takes slow. But for them, they use modern technology. So that's true because a significant portion of the population holds a mindset and culture preference, for cooking with traditional biomass. Because as we already said, the food tastes better, and which is true. See, which means it is, yes, that's true. From my personal point of view, it's true. Yes.
I really hope the people in charge of policy formulation can understand the Ugandan way of cooking.
If they don't, then it won't work.
In the north, in the east, in the south, in the central, so that all people's cultural desires and interests are catered for.
Yes.
This is a very interesting topic. We would actually take much longer if we went deeper. But maybe, Professor, lastly, for our interaction today, is what are some of the main challenges and opportunities for Uganda in transitioning to cleaner cooking fuels within the context of the current environmental policies and laws?
Okay, yeah. So we had already started talking about that, but I will still emphasize the points. Number one, affordability and upfront cost. Actually, this is the biggest really barrier, because you'll find that whereas people argue what people call e-cooking can be cheaper than charcoal, but the initial cost, of clean cooking appliances is high. For example, buying electric pressure cooker, I don't know how many people can afford, or even LPG cylinders and stoves. It's very high, you see, for people who are earning, salaries. Then, as you have already said, there is a challenge of perception and cultural norms, you see, which is associated with mindset and cultural, preference, you see, where people, as you have already said, prefer, food that is cooked by charcoal or even firewood. And this is a powerful barrier because it requires sustained and targeted awareness and sensitization campaign to shift, consumer behavior. Then the other one, which is a challenge, is supply and chain infrastructure. You see, as I've already said, there is inadequate infrastructure for LPG, biodiversity, especially in rural areas. Then the other challenge is enforcement of the law that we are talking about, all regulations, because this requires really robust monitoring, reporting and verification. But at the same time, you'll find that it also requires a strong political will, you see. But as the way we are now is that, as I've said, you cannot enforce what you are using, you see. You cannot enforce what you are using or you like to use.
There would be enforcers also using charcoal.
Yes, they are also using charcoal, so it becomes contradictory.
So you can't shoot your own leg.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, very difficult to enforce. Sure. Now, in terms of opportunities now that we have, is that there are national real initiatives. As I've told you, I participated in one of the national initiatives for the Forest Sustainable Charcoal Value Project, which was 2021-2025 to end this year, which aims to promote cleaner technologies, improved wood rot management, and alternative energy solutions, addressing both social livelihood and environmental conservation. This was funded by FAO, funded by EU and implemented by FAO. It is being collaborated with the Ministry of Water and Environment, but also the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. But as I've said, it's a pilot, so it doesn't cover all of the districts, which means that, and again, it is short. Now it has ended, so the opportunity may not be achieved. Sure. But also, as I've said, the government has also been trying to develop initiatives, especially in partnership with organizations as UNDP, GIZ, to have Clean Cooking Alliance by promoting efficient cooking stoves and renewable technologies. But also Uganda, on its own, has made a commitment. As I've already said at the beginning, under the Paris Agreement, they have made a commitment for national determined contribution, which includes reducing emissions from household energy use. This also presents an opportunity to align domestic energy policies with global climate commitment, while improving public health and also women's, livelihood. So the opportunities are there, but they are still small. Yeah, they are still small. We need to do more.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
So, Professor, thank you for your insights. Maybe one follow-up, and then I invite you to give us your parting shots.
Okay.
My one follow-up on that, in the broader global agenda to transition to cleaner cooking, where would you position Uganda? Do you think we are ready to ban and eliminate the use of charcoal totally? What will be your outlook on the transition?
No, Uganda is not yet ready.
Okay.
It's not yet ready because of the challenges I have already pointed out.
Okay.
Number one is that where is charcoal coming from? Charcoal is coming from rural areas. Who's using charcoal in urban areas? So, which means actually when I was doing some of these projects, I agreed with these charcoal producers. They were saying for us, actually we are not using much charcoal. We are using even firewood. So it is you people. Yes, it is you people. So who are using the charcoal? So you are the one causing the demand. So
when you use,
yes,
the demand goes high,
yes,
and where there is demand,
yes,
supply has to follow.
Yes. So which means that we need to first address the demand in urban areas. The pork joints, the chicken joints, and all of that, which are using charcoal, okay, by coming up with
alternative sources of energy.
Yes, before we start about. But at the same time, then we have to make sure that the sources of income in the
grassroots,
yes, are also addressed,
so that you reduce the dependence.
Yes, because if you now you reduce charcoal and people don't have income, then you are creating poverty. Okay. So which means that we need to first of all address alternative sources of income for those people who produce charcoal, but also address alternative source of energy for people using charcoal. And as far as I'm concerned, we are still far, because we are coming up with the law, but also, as I've said, the law deals with technology, but not the real problem. Yes.
So you are recommending a systems approach to the question of energy.
Yes, it covers everything.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, Prof, thank you very much, and maybe you are one or two parting shots.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much again for this opportunity. First of all, as I've already said, is that it is too early to talk about charcoal, stopping charcoal. You see, it has to be done in phases. It has to be done in phases by addressing the critical issues. One of the recommendations that people are talking about is to have, fast-growing trees, that help, to produce charcoal, so that you are able now to reduce deforestation. You see, then you start from there. Then, secondly, there is a need really to raise awareness, and this awareness is not only for discouraging people to use charcoal, but also the health risks, because it causes fire, people have died, so they also need to raise awareness. But also, there is a need to improve coordination between the Ministry of Water and Environment, coordination between the Ministry of Health and Environment, and also the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, so that there is a comprehensive approach to deal with charcoal issues, so that we see it as a problem. But also, as I conclude, is that what we need to know is that charcoal, people call it black gold. black gold is that there is a lot of money in charcoal. When you go to a country like Somalia, where I worked, is that they are selling that charcoal to the Middle East because of how they use it. So in other words, you cannot just stop charcoal without knowing the economic value and how you replace the economic value, because otherwise then you read smuggling, you read corruption. So that's another issue. How do you really restrict charcoal trade, especially transboundary charcoal trade? As you know, our charcoal goes to Kenya, from Kenya to the Middle East. See, so all of these need to be addressed so that you are able to comprehensively address the charcoal problem. Otherwise, deforestation will continue, and charcoal will still be produced and even be sold. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Emmanuel Kasimbazi, for sparing time to interact with us.
Yes.
I believe what you have contributed will play a big role in our project and also guiding the policy makers in handling this intricate question of the energy transition.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very interesting, project, and I'm glad you have done this. And why I'm even impressed with your project, you are relating it to many issues. You see, human rights, environment, and gender. You see, which means that if you really come up with good recommendations, you have taken really, a good step in Uganda's approach to the charcoal, issue.
All right. I know this is a very interesting discussion which might not end, but thank you. Thank you once again. And on behalf of the School of Law, Makerere University, and HURIPEC, where I come from, I want to wish you a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
I appreciate, yeah.
Makerere, Makerere, we build for the future, the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty, the walls around thee. Great, great and mighty, the gates beside thee. Great, great and mighty, the walls